cartoons. And in the late 1930s, which was a really long time ago, he decided he wanted to make a movie as long as other movies. They call them feature-length movies, like the movies they make today. And he was the first one that wanted to do that. And his very first movie that he ever made was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He didn't know how it was going to go. Everybody said it, didn't think it was a good idea. Who's going to sit through a cartoon that's 90 minutes long? It turned out that Snow White was very, very, very popular. Everybody loved it. And he made so much money making Snow White that he took that money and he bought the land in Burbank to build the Walt Disney Studios, which is still here today. In that building, he put the Snow White, the Seven Dwarfs on there because he wanted to symbolize that the Seven Dwarfs built the whole studio. So he has them holding up the building, symbolizing holding up the company. I thought that was interesting. And Tony and I still work there. Our building is not that building, but it's a building like over here. So we get to look at that every day. It's kind of fun. There's these plaques that are right here. You can't see them on this picture, but there's their hands, and they've written their names of famous people that work for Disney. So something about the dwarfs. They are 19 feet tall, and they weigh 30,000 pounds each. Wow. Dopey's only 12 feet tall, he's a little chunk. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to tell you about Disney and how that studio got started, and that was way back in the 1930s. So, to talk about the ink and paint department, this is the way they used to make the movies. Nowadays, everybody knows it's made on computers, right? Everybody sits at a computer and draws a character or whatever, and it goes right into the computer. But that's not how they did it all the way up until Little Mermaid, I think that was made in 1989. We made the movies the way Antonio's going to show you how we made the movies. You take a piece of cell material, you ink from one side, you flip it over, and you paint the other side. And the whole movie was made like that. For Snow White, they had to make 400,000 cells to make Snow White. So he's going to show you how they did one cell. Can you imagine? They did 400,000. That's a big number for you guys to know. We are the only studio that still does it the way Walt Disney used to do it. Antonio is our only inker, and he does a lot of other stuff for Disney also for our department. He does painting, he does special effects. What special effects are, and you'll get to know this, is let's say Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell has wings. They're not painted, they're airbrushed. I don't know if you know what airbrush is. It's paint that's put into something.
Well, we
and
remember,
air pushes it, and it sprays the air on the cell. So
remember we saw when he was painting Jiminy Cricket? That's airbrushing.
Make a frisket, put it on there, so paint doesn't go all the way around, and you spray on there. So her wings were all done like that, every single cell. And what's fun is you think about the pixie dust. When she used to fly, pixie dust just went all over, right? Every single one of that pixie dust was done by hand with a pen that he's going to show you, like this. There was a drawing for it, and every single cell had somebody did that by hand. And he also does, special effects. Can't on my mind's going. Inking, painting. Well, he does it all because we only have one Antonio. There's only one guy that doesn't. In the beginning, there was hundreds of people that used to make the movies. 100 inkers, 100 painters, and it would take them like 5 years to make a movie. Now they do it on computers. They do it a lot quicker. So Antonio's going to show you the process. I don't know if you guys don't understand what I'm talking about. Please raise your hand and ask me a question. Like the movie that she had on here when you first came in, that was made the way Antonio's going to show you how to make every scene. Somebody sat at a desk and had a piece of cell material and had a drawing underneath it and a pen, and they would outline the line, and then they would turn the cell over and paint on the back. For every single frame of that movie, there was 24 cells. So it took a long time to make a movie. So Antonio's going to show you how the process is.
No, that would help.
Yeah.
No.
So this would be the animator's pencil drawing. And then once that's done, once it's cleaned up, then it goes to our department, which is inking and painting, and our job is to transfer those lines onto this blank cell. You guys can see it? So we put it on top, and we still use the same tools that were used back in 1920. So what happens is, I pick a section to start off with, and I use this stick to hold down the cell because it tends to bubble up, and I also use that stick to help me get the ink flowing from the nib. So what I do is I push the ink to the tip of the nib, and then I start inking.
And he wears gloves because?
So that we don't scratch the cell, and because we want to look cool.
And it makes your hand glide easier. What you have to know is what we do today is we do, let's say, one cell, and we sell it to somebody, and they frame it and they put it on their wall, so it has to be perfect. If they finish the whole cell inking it and turning over and painting it, and then they went to go clean it and they put a big scratch on it, they'd have to throw it away. We had this one cell that was really, it took 3 days to ink it and 3 days to paint it. It was a special anniversary cell, and at the end, if somebody scratched it or there was a pit in the cell, they had to throw it away and start all over again. Oh, is that mine? Sorry. That's her calling me back.
So remember what he's doing right now is how they used to make movies a long time ago, like Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland and Snow White. And do you remember how long I told you it took to do one cell? I mean, it takes about an hour to ink. Would you talk about, right?
Yeah.
It depends on how complicated the cell is, but let's say it takes 2.5 hours to do one cell. One person to do one cell, inking and painting, would probably take 2.5 hours to do. So that's why it took 5 years to make movies. Up until, I'm sure you can think of, I'm sure you guys have seen all the Disney movies up until Little Mermaid. You've seen Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Jiminy, Pinocchio, all those.
Raise your hand if you remember how many cells I told you are in 1 second of the film. Raise your quiet hand and tell me. Eddie? 24. 24. So what he's doing, good job, Eddie. What he's doing is just one of those 24. That's just amazing, isn't it?
Oh, Antonio, you were going to talk about how you came to be in the paint department.
Yes. How did you come to work at Disney?
I understand that you guys are talking about this month, the whole year, dreaming big, so that you can do whatever you want when you grow up. You dream it, and you work at it, and you can do it, and that's exactly how Antonio got a job at Disney. He's going to tell you how he got the job at Disney.
Well, I've been drawing since I was very little. Maybe I was like 2 years old when I started drawing, and I always dreamed about working for Disney. And I grew up in Mexico, and then I came back when I was 16, and we used to live close to the Disney Studios, like 5 minutes away. So I used to ride my bike there, and then ride around the studio and dream about working for Disney as an artist. And then when I turned 19, I went to a working agency, and they basically got me a job at Disney, not as an artist, but during that time when I was there, they were starting this inking department. And then I talked to one of the coworkers, and I told him that I was an artist, that I'd like to try out for that position. And he said, well, go talk to your boss. So I talked to my boss, and then the next day I came in, and they tested me, so I drew some Winnie the Poohs, and it was good enough that they hired me. And that's how I started working at Disney when I was 19.
Awesome. Yeah.
He said he used to drive around the studio and go, oh, I wish I could work there. And it just happened because he kept doing what he loves to do. And I'm sure you guys all think about what you want to do when you grow up, right? Does anybody have any idea what they would like to do? What would you like to do? You want to draw too? That's great.
Okay, raise your quiet hand and share some of your dreams about what you want to do when you get older. Yes. Yes. Nice and loud, honey. Everybody, raise your hand if you love to draw. Me too. Okay, good. Put your hands down. What are some of the things you want to be when you grow up? Some of you want to be an artist. What else, Chris?
I want to be
A what master?
a ninja.
A ninja master? Awesome, awesome.
I know.
Protecting, maybe in law enforcement, protecting us, yes. A police officer?
I know, cute. That's cute.
So, do you see how he's inking Donald? And did you guys understand that underneath? Listen, shh. Do you see the marks in red? The artist who originally drew Donald Duck, that's his drawing, and he has the cell material on top, and he's going over it in ink.
And then when he's done with that, he's going to flip it over and show you how to paint on the other side. He doesn't have time to finish a cell today because it takes a long time. So he's going to take it back to work, and he's going to finish this Donald Duck, and he's going to give it to us, frame it, and you guys will be able to, just going to hang it up in the library, and you'll be able to see the finished product.
That's amazing.
Isn't that cool? That was a surprise. I didn't know that. So here's a fun fact. Listen, I learned this morning that it's actually not ink. They call it ink, but it's actually a type of paint.
Well, it's paint that's been watered down a little bit, so it's not as thick. I always thought it was ink too, but it's paint.
Wow.
Well, you know, and so I was going to show you this. Where's the So when the inker sits down to ink and the painter sits down to paint, so that they know what to do, what line to paint, what color, and what part of the cell gets a different color, they have something called like this called a call out. And this will tell you there's lines that go, okay, the inside of his eye is this color, and his hat, ribbon on his hat is this color, and they would go and they would get a box of paints and inks from the paint lab, and they would sit down and they would have this to tell them exactly what line gets what color, and what part of the cell gets blue, what part of the cell gets red, and the exact color that the producer or director called out for the movie. So they just don't paint whatever they want. They have to paint this. Interesting.
Yes, Miss Martinez. Oh,
Well, we're so small right now, and we have so much work to do that it's almost impossible. The studio? Yeah, sometimes they do. Yeah, they do tours. Be interesting.
Did you guys just open a museum?
Like a kid, I've never seen kids walking around there. I
they
don't know.
did just open Walt Disney's office. Is that what you're talking
The
about?
museum, yeah.
Oh yeah, we got to see that. It was fun, but I don't think that's open to the public.
The Glendale Airport or something?
What?
It used to be the Glendale Airport?
It did? No.
I think you're talking about something
It
different.
was at the studio. This is Walt's office that they just.
Now, they just recently opened up Walt Disney's original office at the studios for special executives and things to tour, right? It's not open to the public, but you can see Walt Disney's original office, which is pretty cool.
We should talk about Disney. It's kind of hard to know what they're grasping.
So this ink, to ink this takes about an hour, and then to paint it will take about another hour, right?
He's going to show you a painting now.
So is that complete? So it's complete now.
Look guys, you see?
Wow.
Oh yeah. So what do you call that?
This tool that he
Yeah,
uses.
just an inking nib.
So it's called an inking nib, and he needs to dip it in. He needs to dip it in that, and he refills that every few strokes to get more to load it up with paint.
So now he's going to flip it over and show you how you paint on the other side. You ink on one side, you paint it over, turn it over and paint it on the other. I'm not sure if you guys grasp this, but the way they used to make the movies was just like this. They didn't put in the computer. They didn't, it was all done, people were sitting at desks making the movie by hand inking and hand painting. It's crazy to think that's the way they made the movies. I still can't get over that. 400,000 cells to make Snow White. Yes. Do we see people at Disneyland? No, we were in Burbank at the studio where that building is that I showed you.
So he'll show you what it looks like when it's finished, but for some reason, because of his light box, it's not transferring the color. So it looks like it's black, but it's actually yellow. I don't know how to make that.
I love that.
Magic, guys. Magic.
Him paint, and he was saying earlier that he has to kind of turn this off and on throughout the day because it gets hot, and that will affect the paint and make the paint dry too fast. So, and not only that, but it probably makes him hot, wouldn't you think? Because there's heat coming out of the lights here. So he's going to work on this while we're talking some more, and if you have some more questions, or teachers, if you have questions. Yes, honey? What's your question? So when you came in, did you see that movie that was playing?
Yes.
Okay, Mom, why don't you explain a little bit?
What we do now, because they don't make the movies like that anymore, we sell to the galleries, and we also sell to employees of the company. And right now we just finished an edition that I got a frame from that movie. It was called Mickey's Surprise Party. You might want to show it again when we're done. And I took a scene from that, and I went and got the animator's drawing, which we have a place called the Animation Research Library, that they kept all the drawings that all the artists did. And I would go and ask for that sequence and scene, get the exact animator's drawing, and that is how we would proceed. But this one was from Mickey's Surprise Party, where they're sitting at the piano. And it was very popular because it was Mickey and Minnie. We sold out. Everybody loved it. Does everybody like Mickey and Minnie?
Yes.
And did you notice that Minnie Mouse was wearing a different color dress?
Yes.
What color dress was she wearing? What color dress does she wear?
Red.
Red.
And Miss Coronado, what was your question?
Oh, my family and I would like to watch Disney shorts, and we just saw there's like a new type of Disney short.
Pixar.
No, it's not even Pixar.
Ah.
It's Diego, help me out. Well, the characters look a little different.
Well, they made them up new. Like, did you see in front? I think in front of Frozen there was something called Get a Horse.
Yeah.
We did that at our studio.
Okay, so I was going to ask you
Yeah.
guys those as well.
Okay, so did everybody see? We just finished at the studio. We just finished Zootopia. Has everybody seen Zootopia? Well, if you watch that movie and you watch all the credits, way down at the end, we're on all the credits, which is kind of fun. Even though we have nothing to do with the movie, but we're part of the studio. Okay, so we just finished Zootopia. Did everybody see Big Hero 6? That was really popular. And of course, the all-time favorite is Frozen.
Last class. Did you guys hear that?
I love kids. I don't care. I'm glad you guys are excited. Frozen was a big deal for the Disney animation. That was like the biggest animation movie they ever made. They made as more money that on anything. Hey, I told you how much, you wouldn't even know there were so many zeros. You wouldn't believe how much money. And it's still making money. Big Hero 6 was really popular, and like Zootopia really hit a chord with everybody. Okay, we have a movie coming out the end of this year.
Oh, wait, she's going to tell you about the next Disney movie.
There's another movie coming out that maybe you guys haven't heard about. It's coming out in November, I think at Thanksgiving time. It's called Moana. Has anybody heard about that?
Yes.
All right, now you know how they make movies? Before they start, they have an idea and they have to get what they call a green light. They have to get okay to make this movie. And before they start the movie, they go to make Moana, it's about a Polynesian girl who's a princess. And they go to Polynesia, I think they went to Tahiti this time, and they take pictures of the people that live there, and they eat with them, and they learn their culture, and they bring it all back here, and that's how the artists draw for the movie, so that people know it's from that era, and they want to be very correct in showing their culture. Like if they went to Mexico to make a movie, which by the way they should. They should. They would go there and they would take pictures of everybody and come back and try to make the characters look like that. So that's the movie. We got to look forward to that coming out.
So I thought this was interesting. Last class, Mrs. Peters asked a really good question. She asked, listen, do you see how he's working on Donald Duck? Yeah. She asked if there's other people that will work on the same character. And the answer is that yes. Multiple people would work on the same character.
They would go and they'd get in the work in the morning and they would go somewhere where they had this and they would assign them a character to do that day or a scene. And they would give them the call up like I showed you, and they would get some material. They'd go to the paint lab and get the paints for that scene, which comes in a big box like this and has all the paints for that cell that they're painting that day. And then they would follow the instructions like I showed you, and they would paint for the day.
And do you remember how I shared with you the tunnel that Walt Disney built under the studios? Yeah. Remember how I told you, I said that the rumor is that his kids would slide on cells and go through the tunnel? And I said, but don't worry, they never did it on the actual cells. That would be crazy. That's for Disney's art. But guess what? I was wrong. They did slide on the art. Will you please explain that?
Well, until they find out how valuable they were, they just were throwing them away, and the artist would go and they'd put the cell down on the ground because it would slide really fast down the concrete.
So they were sliding on original artwork.
And then they found out that people would buy them, so now we save them all at the Animation Research Library now. And you know, especially from the artists that are no longer with us, they're very, very valuable.
So Antonio is rare. He's unique. He's so special, but he's also rare because there's not many people doing what he does anymore. Matter of fact, we
only have him.
He's the only he can paint artist at Disney. This art they're not doing anymore. The only way they're doing it is with my mom's department right now, or not my mom's department, but her department, to keep the art alive, and they sell the cells to other employees. Otherwise, no one's really doing this anymore. And I think it's important to recognize because of all the time and talent that went into one cell. So that's why I thought it was important to share with you. So it's really special that he's here because there's not many of.
Tell them how they do it now.
Now do you remember how they do it now? What did I tell you? How do they make Disney movies now? Does anyone remember what I said? What do they do? How do they make Zootopia? They use what? Yes.
They use the computer, sounds wrong, and then it will turn off the picture.
Yeah, they use computers now, right? I told you that there's such things, excuse me, boys. There's such things called the CAPS department, and that's computer-aided, computer animated production system, and that's how they make the movies now. So how long does it take to make a digital movie now?
Well, they try to do them quicker now, maybe 3 years.
Okay, so 3 years to make a movie now, 5 years to make a movie from
Maybe even
or longer.
almost 7 years the way they used to make them. What?
No, she's talking.
Oh.
So he would continue to paint this and let it dry. He said that he inks one day, and then the next day he would paint them, right? And back in the day, they had them all over the studio to dry, or what was that?
Okay, so years ago they had paint the painters loved it because it went on the cell material real smooth, but it was made out of lead, and they found out that that was dangerous for people to work with, so they had to find a different kind of paint. And another reason was it took so long for that paint to dry. Like what he would be painting right now, you'd do one section, let's say the blue coat, and you'd have to put it aside for 8 hours to dry before you could do another section of the cell. Because you wouldn't want to put your arm in it and smear it after you got done painting it. So now we have acrylic paints and it dries within minutes. So another interesting fact is that usually you start in the middle of the cell and paint outward so that you're not reaching over when the paint's wet and smearing it all over. And he has to be really careful because you can't scratch the cell because then we'd have to throw it away to start all over again.
Can you imagine all that hard work? And in the background of the art was a whole other thing, a whole other department, would you say? Another artist?
All right, now, well, we have to show them the film. You have the cell and the character on the top, and then they would have what's called a background. So it would be the forest or the street where all the houses were, and that would be down, and then they put the cell material on top of that.
Teachers, do you have any other questions? We do need to wrap it up. It's almost time for your lunch. Are there any other questions, teachers? Ms. Cornell?
Just a thought.
Yes.
Has he illustrated any books?
Have you heard about what else?
Or thought about illustrating?
No, but have you thought about, he is definitely a very talented artist. I wonder if I could pull up one of your other.
I'm almost done.
Okay, I'm gonna, he's almost finished painting Donald Duck. I'm gonna see if I can pull up one of his other things that he's done.
You showed them the nice thing, right?
Miss Erod has a question.
Yes, Miss Erod. Thank you, Mrs. Precious. Do you have a favorite character? Listen, boys and girls. Do you have a favorite character?
Not really, but I did like doing Maleficent. We did that last year.
We did that last year. That was real popular. I used to want to see you do this every one. We have a licensee at work. We did a lot of stuff. So when I
guys,
found
you
out, I
ready?
was shocked.
Okay, I'm looking for a picture I can show you. Yes, Mrs. Potts has a question. Quiet, please.
I have a question for Inspector. What's your mom's name? Ricky. I was wondering, did you ever do cells when it actually was in a movie? So you,
I've been at Disney for like 18 years, but they stopped making movies this way with Little Mermaid.
I know they still for a while did some background.
Well, Princess of the Frog were all song and then.
Yeah.
Did anybody see Princess of the Frog?
Yes.
So remember, you're looking at the back of the cell.
Oh, what's your favorite? Mickey?
Crisscross applesauce. Butterfly fingers. Okay, I want to see them.
Okay. When this cell is done, they would put it, we have what's called a multi-plane camera, gigantic thing, huge. They would put the background down at the bottom, and they would put the different, like in Bambi, if you look at Bambi, you could see layers and layers. It's like 3D almost, but it wasn't because we didn't have that technology then. What they had was the multi-plane camera, where where on one level was the background, and then you'd have another cell with maybe the foliage, and then another cell with Bambi, and then another cell on top of that that had layers, and then there was a big camera that took a picture of it. That's how we did it. All done with the camera. Just like
Okay,
that.
I'm going to show you. So he is very talented, and he does lots of stuff on his own outside of Disney. So I'm going to switch this, and you're going to see what I'm going to show you was done in pencil. Are you ready for this? I wonder if any of you can recognize, or maybe teachers, you can say who this person is. Hopefully it's that quick.
Yeah.
Diego. Come on. Frida
So
Kahlo.
he
Frida
did
Kahlo.
this in pencil.
That's
Okay, he
amazing.
did this with a number 2 pencil that you do your homework with.
So, are you teachers want to take a guess?
Does anybody know who it is? Does anybody know who it is?
Frida Kahlo. Sorry.
Yes, Frida Kahlo. Everyone say Frida
My favorite.
Kahlo. And Mr. Poyle, will you tell them what you just told me about Frida Kahlo? She's the most.
She's the most famous Mexican painter.
So you guys should know that.
Let me show you another image.
Bruce Lee.
This is Bruce Lee.
Whoa. Whoa. Oh, Miss Spectre.
Okay,
Anyone know who that
Can you see? No?
Okay, this next one, we talked about him and his big dreams and how he didn't give up even when he didn't make the team. Who is this?
Michael Jordan.
Okay, I'm going to show you one more, then we got to go. All right, we're going to end on Frida Kahlo. This is going to dry, and then he will share it with us when it's finished. So everybody, what do we say to Mr. Kalila and my mom?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming. All right, awesome. I hope that you're inspired. And you know, sometimes, no, thank you. Excuse me. Sometimes you have to work really hard for a long time. And don't give up, even if it's short term. When you're working on something, listen. No, I asked Danny. When you're working on something in your classroom and it's taking forever, don't give up and always do your best. You saw how long it took him to do that. It's always worth it in the end. And you can look back and say, you know what, I'm proud of myself because look what I just did, right? So don't give up now and don't give up ever, okay? Thank you so much. I'm going to wait. You're not going to get up until your teachers tell you. So look to your teachers. We'll dismiss from the back this way. And I hope you guys have a great day. So look to your teachers. Don't stand up until they tell you. I know. She's a big Disney fan.